I've made several videos already about unusual win-loss records pitchers have had throughout Major League Baseball history, and thanks to the randomness that baseball is, we are left with no shortage of such pitching seasons. This video is about a particular season by former pitcher Jack Billingham. Billingham was a starting pitcher who played in Major League Baseball for 13 seasons from 1968 to 1980. In his career, he holds a lifetime record of 145 and 113 across over 300 games started and pitching in nearly 500 games total. He threw over 2,200 innings in those games while earning a 3.83 ERA, 94 adjusted ERA, a 1.354 WHIP, and achieving 7.3 WAR. He pitched for 5 different teams during his career, but is best remembered for being a staple in the Cincinnati Reds rotation in the mid-1970s, the team he spent the most time with. An often forgotten member of the Big Red Machine, Billingham was one of the best pitchers of the team during their incredible playoff run in the 70s. In 6 seasons as a Red, Billingham won 87 games while recording an ERA of 3.85, an adjusted ERA of 91, and earning 1.9 WAR. While those stats may not seem great, he was a workhorse, pitching nearly 1,300 innings in those 6 seasons while playing in over 200 games. The regular season stats may be below average, but Billingham was a legend in the playoffs. In 42 career postseason innings for Cincinnati, he holds a shiny 1.93 ERA, which includes an ERA of 0.36 in 25 1/3 innings across 3 World Series, 2 of which he won. Without a doubt, one of the greatest World Series pitchers of all time. It was during his time on the Reds where Billingham had a bizarre season, specifically his 1974 campaign. That season, he pitched 212 1/3 innings across 35 games started. He recorded a 3.94 ERA, 89 adjusted ERA, a 1.399 WHIP, and a negative 0.1 WAR. Not such great stats obviously, however despite that, he placed 6th in Cy Young voting and 16th in MVP voting. Why such high placements in both awards despite lousy stats? Well, it was due to his win-loss record. Winning many games on a good team was all a pitcher really needed to receive Cy Young votes back in the day. What was Billingham's win-loss record in 1974? 19-10. On the surface, that might not seem unusual at all. 19 wins happens all the time, as does 10 losses, and Billingham might have had a poor season, but it wasn't historically bad in and of itself. In 2022 alone, there were 5 qualified pitchers who recorded an equal or lower adjusted ERA to that of Billingham's in 1974. So yeah, nothing out of the ordinary. However, what is unordinary is winning that many games while simultaneously being that bad. Having stats that lousy with that many wins is an anomaly. Just how much? You know the drill by now. To see just how much of an anomaly Jack Billingham's 1974 season was, let's compare it to other seasons all time. First, his adjusted ERA. In the history of Major League Baseball, there have been only 35 instances of a pitcher winning at least 19 games in a single season with an adjusted ERA at or lower than 89. However, most of those pitchers with as many or more wins came before the live ball era, aka from a time where starting pitchers regularly started more than 40, often more than 50 games. So while those pitchers might have been bad, they had a crazy amount of opportunity to win. Looking solely at the live ball era, which is 1920 to present day, only 9 pitchers have ever won 19 or more games in a single season with an adjusted ERA equal or lower to that of Billingham's. If we only look at pitchers that pitched as many or fewer games than Billingham, he's now just one of 2 pitchers on this list. 19 or more wins while pitching in 36 or fewer games with an adjusted ERA at or lower than 89. That's not just the live ball era, that's all of Major League Baseball history. Many of you might be thinking that's not notable, as while 19 wins is a lot, there are plenty of other pitchers that also won many ball games with an equal or worse adjusted ERA. Billingham's season is only notable because he accomplished it in less playing time. Also to note, the other 19-game winner Storm Davis had an even lower adjusted ERA while pitching in fewer games, so why isn't he being discussed now? While that's all true, and a video about Storm Davis' season is a good idea, we need to look at one other stat, WAR. As mentioned earlier, Billingham in 1974 had a WAR of negative 0.1. Winning that many games with a negative WAR is what makes this season crazy. Among all pitchers in the history of Major League Baseball to achieve a WAR at or lower than negative 0.1 in a single season, Billingham is one of 6 pitchers to ever win at least 19 games. The other 5 pitchers at the top of the leaderboard had such seasons prior to the 1900s, all pitching significantly more games and innings. Billingham is the only pitcher since 1890 through 2022 to win 19 games with a negative WAR. Looking strictly at pitchers from the modern era, which is 1900 to present day, Billingham holds the record for most wins with a negative WAR in a single season, achieving 2 more victories than the second place mark. The most wins in a season with a negative WAR since Billingham's season in 1974 is 16, achieved by Ramon Ortiz of the 2003 Anaheim Angels. If that's not all strange enough, don't forget that Billingham not only won 19 games, he only lost 11. Many of the other pitchers on these lists won many games, but also lost many games. Billingham had a solid .633 winning percentage despite the lousy stats. Looking at all pitchers in the history of Major League Baseball with a win-loss percentage at or higher than .633 while also having at least 30 decisions, Billingham has the 4th lowest adjusted ERA and the lowest WAR ever. Nobody else in MLB history has ever achieved a negative WAR with a win-loss record that high. 30 decisions is a lot though, so if we lower the threshold to 20 decisions, Billingham still ranks in the bottom 10 in WAR and bottom 25 in adjusted ERA. One of 12 pitchers ever with 20 decisions and a .633 or higher win-loss record in a single season to also record negative WAR. It's truly one of the most bizarre pitching seasons ever. Jack Billingham had a poor season statistically in 1974 and yet won many games without losing much as well. Some of you may be wondering, how did Billingham win so many games while also being a bad pitcher? 2 main reasons. First, the Cincinnati Reds. In 1974, the Reds were an offensive powerhouse, scoring the 2nd most runs scored per game on average among all MLB teams, posting a 4.76 mark compared to the league average of 4.12. In particular, Billingham received a ton of run support, as Cincinnati scored 6 or more runs in 14 of the games Billingham pitched in, and at least 3 runs in more than half of his games. So while Billingham might have given up many runs, the Reds were that much better at scoring than their opponents. Interestingly enough, in the games the Reds scored 2 or fewer runs when Billingham pitched, he was amazing. In 13 starts under such conditions, he went 5-7 with a 2.52 ERA compared to a 4.83 ERA in 14 starts with a ton of run support. Billingham was incredibly efficient, being a great pitcher when his team didn't support him much, and being a terrible one when he did get ample support. It's also worth noting that Billingham was incredibly streaky. In his 19 wins, he posted a 1.86 ERA across 140 innings pitched. In his 11 losses and 6 no decisions, a 7.96 ERA across 72 innings pitched. So in half of his games, he was lights out, but in the other half, legitimately one of the worst pitchers ever. There might never be a season like Billingham's ever again. To win that many games while also being that bad hasn't happened before or since.